Hey everybody. All right. 7-3 heart valves. We talked a little bit about this last week when we were filling in the packet, so there's just some little bit more formal information for you. What do heart valves do? They help blood to flow in one direction, from atria to ventricles always, never backwards from ventricle to atria. All right, here we go. You've got two sets of valves in your heart. You have the atrioventricular valves, which tell you everything you need to know. Atrio, atrium, ventricular, ventricle. These are the ones that are found between the atrium and the ventricle. So you got two of them between the left and right, and one between the left atrium ventricle and one between the right atrium ventricle. So atrioventricular valves, like we said, are between atrium ventricles. Their job is to prevent the backflow into the atria when the ventricles contract, because when they squeeze, blood's going to come out two directions. We only want it to go one direction. So the valves keep it from going back into the atria. All right, on the right side of the heart, you have the tricuspid, which tells you a lot about it. Tri, three, cuspid, cusp, three cusps. So this is found on the right side between the right atrium, right ventricle. It has three flexible cusps, and they're kind of like umbrella shaped like this. And so they go like this, and what's bad is when they go that way. We don't want them to go that way. We like them that way. Now on the left side of the heart, we have the bicuspid, or the mitral valve, which has something to do with the Pope's hat. I looked up, but yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so we'll just call it bicuspid. That's easy, but just know that it's also called the mitral valve. That's found between the left atria and left ventricle, and it has two. Bicuspid has two cusps, and they're held in place by these lovely things called the chordae tendineae. Actually, chordae tendineae. I'm sorry, AE has an I sound to it. Chordae tendineae, and these are tendinous cords, is all that means. And these are just white cords of collagen that attach to the valve flaps, and they anchor the cusps to the papillary muscles. Remember, the papillary muscles look like little bumps. And so what they do is they prevent this. So they don't pull them open. That's just the contraction and kind of like the sucking of the blood from the atria. They don't pull anything. They just prevent them from going backwards. That's all they do. All right. So here is a picture of the bi and tricuspids. This one right over here. Let's see. Medial. This looks like the right hand side. So this is the tricuspid. And as you can see, its flow goes inwards. Let me get my little pen going here. So the flow goes in like that, and it can't go backwards. Here's the chordae tendineae right here, and here are the papillary muscles that hang on to them. Now, yes, you can always damage these, and that would cause bad things, and they can put fake little chordae in there and to hold them in place. So blood is only one direction. So all the atrioventricular valves always go top to bottom. Always, always, always. Here's some real pictures of them, so you can see the chordae tendineae. You can see the little cusp right here, and so I think one's a drawing, one's a real picture. It's kind of hard to tell, but yeah, so you can see what they really look like. Okay, now the other types of valves. Oh, I lied. Let me go back. When relaxed, the AV valve flaps just kind of flap in the wind. Oh, I think that was supposed to be a G. That they hang in the ventricular chambers. And then when the blood flows into the atria, and then it goes into the ventricles, the ventricle contracts. And then when it squeezes, it's going to squeeze blood both ways. So we need that one up top, the AV valves, to go bloop. Nope, you can't go back. So that way the blood doesn't go back into the atria, but is actually now forced forward. I used this analogy the other day with someone that actually made a lot of sense. You know how when you're in the bathtub or the pool, and at the surface of the water, you go squirt, 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 like that? Well, that's kind of like how the valves go. When you open up your hand, that sucks the water into your hand, and then when you squirt, it gets forced out that direction because of the pressure of the water down here. It's kind of like what a valve does, is when your ventricles open, it sucks the atria blood into it, and then when it closes, because it's smacked up top here, the only direction it can go is out, and then out through either the aorta or the pulmonary trunk. All right, so here's a chordae tendineae again. So they anchor the flaps in their closed position, preventing them from going backwards into the atria. That's bad. And doctors can tell if that's your problem just by the sound it makes. I have no clue. Okay, now we got the other ones. We got the semilunar valves, semi, half lunar, moon, half moon. And so these guys, they have 3 pocket-like cusps to prevent backflow back into the ventricles. And you have 2, one going to the aorta, one to the pulmonary trunk. So the one going to the aorta, thusly should be called the aortic semilunar valve. So this one is found between the left ventricle and aorta. So what happens here? Oh, I didn't highlight it. That's why it didn't look right. And then the other one, wait for it, wait, because it's just as equally important. He deserves to be highlighted as well. There we go. And we have the pulmonary semilunar valve, which is the one that goes between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk. So let's take a look at those. All right, so here are our 2 cuspids, the bi and tricuspid, and then here are our pulmonaries, or the semilunars. So this one right here, this is one that goes to the aorta, and this is the one that goes to the pulmonary trunk. And then if we look over here at this guy, here's a real nice heart for you to see. And so we can see that here's the aortic semilunar. Notice how big and thick and rigid it is because of the high pressure that the aorta is placed under, so it's nice and big and thick. And then we don't see the pulmonary valve, but it would, here's pulmonary trunk. If we were to chop right there, we would see it right underneath. Now, our valves are no big deal until something goes wrong with them. So there's a couple of different problems that we have with valves. Fire truck. One of them is called an incompetent valve, and so incompetent means not up to the job. And so these are ones that when they close, they don't close all the way, but they kind of, maybe like that or like that. And so what they end up doing is repumping the same blood because a lot of it backflows into the atria, and you're repumping it again, and that loses the efficiency of your body at pumping oxygenated blood. And so that person gets tired very easily, is winded, not very athletic. Me, no. And usually the doctor, when he listens, he can hear it. Another one is called valvular stenosis. Stenosis means a narrowing of, and this is when your valves get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it makes your heart have to work harder and harder and harder to get those valves open to get the blood through. So right over here, here's an incompetent valve. You can see right here that when the ventricle contracts, the blood should be going in this direction, but some of it's going back into the atrium, and so you end up repumping the same blood, so that's bad. Valvular stenosis, here is the pulmonary semilunar. So you can see it's supposed to open all the way to let all the blood go through. And here's one that it's stiff for some reason or another. Plaque buildup, smoking, you name it, anything can cause it. And then so the blood is barely going through, and so that can be lots of problems for the individual. So what do? Well, easiest thing to do is, if it's something as simple as these are really stiff, you can actually scrape some of the plaque off. But an easier thing to do is go just steal one out of a pig. Pigs are the human analogs. For some reason, the proteins on their cells are so similar to ours that we can actually put pig parts inside of us and it works just fine. So here's a valve right here, taken from a pig. 1, 2, 3. So it's got 3 cusps, so it could be a tricuspid or a semilunar. And let's see, what direction is it going? Since the cusps open upwards, it tells us the blood is coming from down here and going upwards. So that means it has to be one of the semilunars. If I were to take the picture and, wait for it, let's see, and flip it upside down. Now what kind of valve is it? Well, then it's either the bicuspid or the tricuspid. All I see is bubbles coming out of the side of my house from the garage. Strange kids. So if the blood were going in a down direction, then we could say for sure that it's got three cusps, so it would be the tricuspid valve. All right, I think that's it. So that's it on valves, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.